Microphone check 1 2 1 2. This is your host, not son, baby, and this is another episode of Swingers After Dark. And I'm with the BDSM Dom, Jay Allen, Flogg Mesumazz. Straight out of Philly by the way of Connecticut, man. Al, and he's a practitioner of flogging. That's your specialty, right?
Yes, it is.
So how did you get into the BDSM lifestyle?
Basically, man, it was watching. I found it intriguing, learning, and just watching from two mentors of mine. One is Daniel,
Sir Daniel.
yeah, and the other one is Sir Mount Vernon. And I bought my first flogger, and from there, just went from there. It's just a matter of just learning and maintaining in my lane, so to speak, from what I do, because I like what I do. I try to maintain what I do as far as staying in my lane and not branching out until I learn something that I'm good at. But as far as when it comes to flogging, sensory play, and hot wax, that's what I know. That's what I do.
So explain the sensuality part of flogging. It's very sensual. Explain like your techniques.
You have nobody flogs the same. That's one thing for sure. You have some flog guys that flog for impact. Mine is more of a sensory flogging, whereas I can go for impact if that's what my subject wants at the time. Then what I'll do is I'll use different apparatuses like pinwheels, back scratchers, different knives and stuff and things of that nature, just to get sensory out of it all, along with my floggers and paddles, and then I transition into the hot wax of it. But it's the main thing of just getting someone prepared to receive what they're going to receive.
Now I gotta give you credit because when we were at the first Purple Rain party, this chick did not want to play at all. But the minute you flogged her, she was with it. So what is it about flogging that gets women going?
Well, what I always ask a woman is this. I just did it no more than 10 minutes ago. If you are playing with your significant other and you're really into it, and he's hitting it from behind, and if he just slaps your ass, if you like that, I tell everybody, then you'll really love what I do, because it's more of extension of it. I like to think that I'm preparing someone to get something else after, because once I'm finished with them, they need a release, and that release usually comes by way of orgasm, and that's all there is.
So it's pretty much sex without penetration.
Yes, and I have had subjects squirt from my flogging. I've had one lady, I flogged her for almost over an hour, and once I finished, she was just having an orgasm that would not stop. I had to hold her for about maybe 20 minutes for her just to come back down.
So the women tell you, what does flogging do to them?
You find some women that they'll see it being done, and they'll listen to it and say, "Nah, I'm not gonna do that because it's gonna hurt." But that's not the fact. Some of it sounds much worse than it is, So a lot of women, they like it because of the way it makes them feel, of the way that the person that's doing it. It all depends on who's doing it and how the response that he elicits from the person. The responses that I want is verbal, physical, and then the internal part of it.
And there's like a lot of negative connotations about flogging. Like when you look up flogging, it's like whipping somebody, but flogging in a BDSM is like a giant tassel. That it's like a giant tassel. You don't whip the women, you just finesse.
Right.
At least that's your style from what I've seen.
That's the first thing the first response I get from any woman that I want to flog is, "Oh no, you ain't gonna be whipping on me." I tell them, "No, it's not whipping. It's not whipping, but then in a sense it is, but it's how you do it. I'm not trying to whip somebody for discipline, no. I'm not trying to whip somebody to bruise them, no. I'm flogging you to enhance your senses. That's all. The physical, the mental, and the emotional. And it's once you relax yourself and just let me do what I do, 9 times out of 10, it's a positive response.
So, do you catch any flack from the BDSM community by crossing over from swinging to BDSM?
No, because it's different, but it is intertwined.
I say that because it's like the old martial arts movies. You know, never teach the secrets of the Wu-Tang. You know what I'm saying? Or like when Bruce Lee was catching flack from people from China because he was teaching the art. So is it the same
But
thing?
the thing about it is, it's not. There's no secret to it if you're seeing it being done. If you like it and you take your time to learn it, it's not like it has to be taught. Techniques can be learned, yes. How to use things can be learned, yes. But it's something that the person does that makes what they do different than others. That's all.
So in the BDSM community amongst the brotherhood, you said that two men have brought you in the BDSM, community. Is there a brotherhood?
Yes, definitely, definitely. It's a brotherhood, but like everything else, sometimes you have those that want to use it for something else, but that's them. Me myself, I do it because I really enjoy it. I enjoy it, but my enjoyment comes from getting the response that I get from the person that I'm doing it to. So, most people that do flog, because there are women that flog also, it's not a jealous thing. It's more of a respect them because of what they do. That's all.
Because I ain't gonna front. Like when I first saw the BDSM DOMs at swing parties, I was kind of salty because I'm like, damn, they taking all the women. All the women would go to the BDSM room, but then I realized it was a pattern. Like they would go into the BDSM room as Mother Teresa, and they'll come back as Mary Magdalene, and they'll be ready to go. So
And that's true because again, we were just talking. Being flogged is another form of getting someone ready to indulge in play. So yes, flogging is a fluffer foreplay. Definitely.
So how long have you been as a dom?
Not as long as everybody thinks. I've been flogging for like at least, I would say maybe 3 years.
So what would you tell, whether they're a male dom or a female dom, what are the advice would you give them if they're interested in flogging?
Patience, being attentive to the person that you're flogging. Understand that you're flogging them because you like it, but you have to make sure that you flog for that person. Sometimes you can be flogging somebody and they'll want you to continue, but depending on their trophies or the way their body is, the heat and everything, sometimes you have to stop them before they want you to. But you do that to protect them, and in turn makes them want to do other sessions with you. You can flog somebody and they'll say, okay, I had enough. Then you say, oh no, you can go a little further. That's pushing the envelope. I don't, and again, it's just my opinion. That's pushing the envelope that I don't do. I don't do that. I'll stop before I do any illicit damage, because you can do damage if you're not knowing what you're doing.
So is it true that you need to know how to take pain in order to give pain, because you need to understand somebody's stress threshold?
Yes, but the threshold comes from communication. While you are flogging them, they should be able to talk. They should be able to move. They should be able to moan, groan, or whatever they want to do. But you have to be attentive to what they're doing.
So what do you pay attention to when you're flogging a woman?
Her sounds, her movements, her body heat. If there is any redness or something of that nature, you just have to be very attentive to everything. You have to concentrate on them.
So do you know if you're going overboard?
You would know if you were, yeah. And that's where the negative part of it comes. If you go overboard, then you're flogging her for you, when you shouldn't be flogging anybody for yourself. You should be flogging them for them.
So like I said, it's kind of like sex without penetration. Like when you intimate with somebody, when you having sex with somebody, you have to pay attention to their breathing and their moans to see what's working and what's not working, and take it from there.
Exactly. You can find certain things that they like, and you find certain things that you don't like. So, by that being said, you have the being attentive to what they're enjoying. That's where you know how to go, how far to go, what part of the flogging you want to go to, and so on and so forth.
So do you find that more single women are into flogging or women in couples?
It's both. That's a kind of a hard question because some men like to watch their wives get flogged or girlfriends get flogged, and some men like to flog and they like to flog their girlfriends or wives. So it's not that it's one or the other. It all depends on who it is and how it is, the atmosphere, who's there, the vibe of the party and all of that.
So have there been times of jealousy where the husband was jealous of you because his wife or girlfriend or significant other or fuck buddy or whatever the case was getting overly excited about you flogging them?
Yes, I've had that happen. But when that does happen, that's the last time that I flog them. If it should happen again, then the three of us will sit down and have a conversation. Because that takes away from everything that's being done that night, because people watch that, people see that. So yeah, it has happened, but when it did happen, I nipped it at the bud, and I can say that was one session. That person would never have another session with me unless we all, meaning me, her, and her significant other, sit down and have a chat about it all.
Okay, so what was the best flogging session you ever had?
Ooh. It all depends, because you have some women that have like a high tolerance for the flogger, and then some, they just like the sensation of it. I like both, but again, it's just knowing which way they want to go. Some women will just, they like the sensory play of it and the soft flogging, and then just ramp it up till they get to where they're good. And then you have some women that just like the pressure of the flogger.
And what was your worst?
Like I said,
like that made you say, nah, this ain't it. This ain't it.
Oh, if someone, this has happened to me before too, where a woman was very, 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 very intoxicated, and she just didn't care. She was like, "Oh yeah, hit me." Nah, because they don't know what they can take. And with that being said, I can't gauge how they are feeling unless it's what I've seen. So I'll do them for about maybe 2 minutes. I say, okay, you had enough, and that's it. And I won't do them anymore until they sober up a little bit.
And I remember one time at the same Purple Rain party that I had spoke of previously, when you was flogging this particular female, this particular woman, I walked in your session and I came behind the session. I came behind you because I was being a creep. I wanted to see how big her ass was. And you told me, you motioned me to get away from her. Like not away from her, but get back in front. And well, I had asked you why, but even though you told me, tell them why you had told me to get in front instead of looking from the back.
Well, normally when you're flogging somebody, they're naked. Now, there's a difference if they're going to be on your St. Andrew's cross, which is an apparatus they have, or if they're going to be on a bed in a very submissive position. If they're in a submissive position, which means they're opening up their entire self to you, that's personal. That's private. Yes, it's a lifestyle party and naked women are everywhere, but in a vulnerable position, she needs to understand that only you are the one that's seeing that. So that's why at that time I had you move around to the front of her so that you can see what everybody else is seeing, because nobody was behind me looking at her private parts but me.
So it was like a trust issue.
Exactly.
And in other words, a respect issue deep down.
Respecting her privacy as a woman, respecting her body as a woman. Every woman doesn't want every male just looking at her private parts. She trusts me enough to know that I had her best interest at heart, and that's how it went.
See, family, you got to understand that, BDSM Doms, even though, they have a session with a woman, that doesn't mean is any man goes, or that doesn't mean that the woman is up for grabs. There's still a respect factor. There's still dignity, and there's still a trust factor in the session.
Yeah,
And the BDSM dom, he or she is a protector.
there's levels to this. Very, very, very heavy levels. Trust and communication is a must between someone being flogged and the person doing the flogging. If you don't trust them, it's not going to happen in a positive manner. It'll be nice, but it's not as nice as if you flog somebody for the first time, yes, there's a little apprehension, a little tension. You hope to work that through so that by the time you have the second session, they know what to expect and they can enjoy that more.
All right. And on that note, this has been another episode of Swingers After Dark, and this is your host, Not Son, baby. Check out my website at www.notsonblaze.com. That's www.nahsunblaze.com. And check out my ebook, You, Me, Us, Them, The Swinger Manifesto. It's on Nook, Kindle, iBooks, Google Play. Go get it out and subscribe, share, comment, rate, review. This podcast is on every podcast platform. And shoot me an email at swingpodcast@gmail.com. That's swingapodcast@gmail.com. And shoot me with any questions and or concerns that you may have. And also Google me. Hit me up on Tumblr. That's Not Son the Great. Hit me up at Instagram. That's Not Son the Great. Hit me up at Facebook. That's Planet Not Son. Hit me up at Snapchat. That's Not Son the Great. And hit me up at Twitter. That's Not Son 1. That's the number 1. You dig? And on that note, until next time, peace.